The arguments that a bull market can continue are, first, the one I described in the 2014 annual wrap-up. Planet equity, there is a plan globally to build out the global securities and equities markets. Privatization is at the root of it, so we're trying to grow the corporate model, if you will. And so what we've watched for the last 20 years is a shift of assets out of governments into the hands of corporations, and it's part of growing the equity market. So I think that's going to continue because it's a very important strategic top-down decision. But second of all, the fixed income market is double what the equity markets are, and with the what I think is the end of the long-term bull in bonds, we're going to see a shift of money out of the bond markets and into equities. I don't see any place else for those funds to go. And now that the central banks have printed, there's an awful lot of cash sloshing around. And there's every indication that the central banks and governments are going to continue to intervene to maintain it. Finally, new technology, if applied properly, if we could get out of all these win-lose problems in the economy, new technology can bring explosive value throughout the equity market. So if you look at all those different reasons, planet equity, privatization, shifts of fund from fixed income, commitments of central banks and government pools of capital, and new technology, it's a lot of force behind supporting a long-term bull market in equities. The arguments against it is we are watching a real battle of models in the global economy, global geopolitics, and domestic. It's if you read the productivity piece that I did for the second quarter wrap-up, if you read what I've written about the shift from Global 2.0 to 3.0, if we talk about moving from a unipolar to a multipolar world, and I think what's come out on the American campaign for president is that ultimately at the root of the big model discussion in the developed world is, are we going to have a human society or an inhuman society? And I make no bones about it. I think the leadership is pushing for an inhuman society, and that is causing tremendous backlash in a variety of ways. So when you have a win-lose relationship between many different players on the global stage and between the leadership in the G7 nations and the people in the G7 nations, that has devastating impacts on both living equity and place-based equity and broad-based productivity. Until that battle of the models gets sorted out, you're going to have tremendous waste. And that's certainly what we're watching in the American economy.